Jake, I don't know what to do. My players are just way too powerful.
Okay.
Anything I throw at them, they're rolling right through it. You know, goblins, they're done in one round. The big bad evil guy, they killed him as soon as I brought him onto the screen. Now I don't even have a campaign. I don't even know what to do. There's just whatever I throw at them, it's like it's not enough. I don't know how to challenge my players. 5e is not deadly enough.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously you're the DM, so you really can kind of do anything you need, but have you tried talking to them about it?
No.
That might be a good spot to start. So today on JNJtabletop, we're going to be talking about what to do if your players are just so powerful you're pulling your hair out. Watch the video.
A question we get all the time, a complaint that I hear all the time, is my players are too powerful. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to challenge them. And that's a very funny. I mean, it can be a problem, but it is kind of a very funny thing for the DM who literally has all the control in the world to do whatever they want in their game to say. Um, Welcome to J&J Tabletop. My name is Josh. This is Jake. And as we dive right into it, I'm going to say the first question you should ask yourself when trying to deal with this situation is, why do I feel like my players are too powerful?
A lot of times when a dungeon master is crafting an encounter, they kind of have a way they envision it playing out in some form or another, and the players might outsmart you because there's literally outnumber you 5 to 1 or whatever it is at the table. Or it comes down to you gave them like a magic item that you shouldn't have too early. Like maybe you gave a level 3 character Flame Tongue, and now they literally are just dealing like, 14 points of damage every time they look at an opponent, and they just, literally melt in front of them. But I think it's important to ask, like, really get down to the core, like identify the problem. Is it an ability that they have? Is it a weapon that they have? It always is going to come down to good communication. Like maybe they feel that they're too powerful too in some way or another, and now all of a sudden everybody can work together to figure out a solution that fits your specific table and situation, because at the end of the day, everybody at the table should be invested in everybody else's fun. And if something's just out of whack, you got to figure it out, and you figure that out together.
And if you ask them that question, like, do you feel like you're too powerful? And the answer is no. And they feel like that they're being challenged with, your combats and with your like social encounters and puzzles and exploration, all that kind of. If they're being challenged by that, well, maybe don't change anything. I mean, you could always give them like something crazy here and there that like will stump them, but if they feel like they're at a good level and they actually feel challenged and they're enjoying things, they don't feel like they're steamrolling through things. Sometimes your perspective behind that DM screen is completely different than the players. And I know I've felt that before in Ancient Relics and Hokey Religions, where like I gave you some sort of combat and you blew through it in like 3 turns or 3 rounds, and I'm just like, all right, I thought that would be like a little harder or whatever. And like I ask you guys about it, and you're like, oh man, like I burned through like all of my stuff. We used shock and awe and like what, and like, like
Yeah. All my key points are gone. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So while it might feel like that was really easy, it's because they used a lot of resources for it. And if that fight had continued another round, maybe somebody would have went down, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the best examples of that was the whole lava bridge room area. Like we had a fight before that, and then we decided to explore a little bit, even though probably should have maybe taken a short rest, and we didn't. And then it made a very epic encounter, all the much more difficult because of that. The way you stagger things, there's a lot of methods that you can use to do that. But I want to circle back a little bit because Josh, you talked about surpassing social encounters too easily. That's an interesting one, especially for all of you eloquence bards out there, that you can just basically like just show up and you're convincing emperors to give you their empire. My thing there is, number one, you got to look at how you set your DCs properly, because there are some things that are just impossible to do, no matter how skilled that someone might be at anything. There's this one Star Trek meme actually where someone puts their hand on a Klingon lady's thigh. He's trying to seduce her, but it's like, oh, I rolled a natural 20. It's like, that's why she's going to let you take the hand away before she shatters every bone in it. Like, that might be the way they get away with being rude to a sovereign or something like that. It can be more than just combat encounters.
And your natural 20 trying to convince the sovereign to give you the kingdom, but maybe there is a benefit for that other than just like you're getting away with it. Maybe it's this kid's got spunk,
Sure.
I want you to work for me, that kind of
spirit. Yeah.
But it could also be, haha, very funny. I'm kicking you out, but you keep your hands. Like,
Yes. Yes.
And we have a video all about social encounters and that kind of thing. So if you want to check that out, check it out.
If you're in a situation as a DM and you're like, my players they're just too powerful for where they are. I mean, one of the first logical thoughts is like, I should nerf them, right?
It is a very valid thought to have, right?
Excellent suggestion.
Exactly, yes. But should you nerf them? Probably not. Probably not. If your player, a lot of this is going to come down to communication, as most things do. But if a player has an ability and it seems too strong, talk to your player about it. Talk to them, see if they feel the same way. If they agree, then maybe you could talk about nerfing it. You might decide that a certain item might be like overpowered for now, and then you could have some sort of conversation or about maybe draining the power from it, or having it be like stolen temporarily, or like anything along those lines. And if you want to hear more about that specifically, like if it's one item, making your games like break, let us know in the comments. We'll do a whole video on it so we can really get into the details. But I think that the better option, instead of like just going straight to nerfing something, is just finding ways around the ability, and challenging them so they still have access to that ability. And when they have opportunities to use it, they'll feel very powerful. But you're not bound by that ability, and you're able to overcome it. I know you you had to deal with that in our Dragon of Icespire Peak game, because we agreed to let me use Tunnel Fighter, which is definitely overpowered. Very fun. It
is,
but it's overpowered.
Yeah, well, you did what you should do, if you will. You combined it with Polearm Master and Sentinel, and Marcus was just an absolute buzzsaw, and he just covered this like 25-foot wide radius of I will protect my entire team. It was incredible, actually, and I think led to a lot of fun hero moments. But there definitely hit a point in the Axholm adventure, which just go ahead and watch that because it was really awesome. But
yeah,
you took out like what felt like 100 ghouls in one round because of that. And I think in that moment, correct me if I'm wrong, you were like, I feel bad for Jake in this moment.
Yeah. Not to be like I'm such a great player and people should do what I did, but like I spoke to you about that ability and I was like, is this overpowered? Are we okay with this? And like we agree that it was overpowered, but you let me finish out the campaign with it. But in that moment in particular, I remember being like,
so much.
Do you want me to keep doing this? Like I could stop, and you're just like, nope, just keep going. I'm like, should I roll with disadvantage? You're like, nope. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. But to me, it was also like what makes Marcus special is his ability to set that line and hold the line. So that was kind of like, yes, was that moment gonzo and all over the place? Absolutely it was. But it also was a fun story to tell, something that we're laughing about now. And I think that's also something that's worth mentioning, because you can just laugh at the way things you think might go in your games, and then they just don't, and everybody's kind of just having a good time about it.
Like for Marcus, right? Marcus had that tunnel fighter, so anytime I was in that defensive stance, if someone walked into my reach, I would be able to hit them, and I would just essentially just get a free attack on them. So for a character like him, right? He's like a strength based, like super powerful at close range, right? How would you challenge Marcus specifically?
There's a few ways to go about it, but I think specifically to hurt Marcus, there's two ways to do it. Number one, he's great at melee. So any kind of ranged base attack is something that's going to give him some kind of pause. So there's a reason why you look at towers with those arrow slits that you just see them raining arrows down. That's a big deal. He needs to now find cover or make some very interesting decision points as to how he's going to handle that because he is not a ranged fighter. And then the other way is, of course, magic. Every character has some kind of potential weakness, and he's a fighter. So if you start making them make wisdom saving throws, intelligence saving throws, charisma saving throws, that challenges where he's probably weak. A whole person all of a sudden makes him kind of helpless. Same would go for like if you were going up against a caster, just ogre in their face, see what they do.
Yeah, there's always ways to bring a melee fighter to a magic user's door, and it's even easier to bring a ranged attack or a saving throw to someone with a high AC.
Absolutely, because we've all seen someone who's like, "Can I have full plate? Can I have my shield?" And then take the defense fighting style. They're like, maybe they're an artificer and they're like enhancing defense too, like all this stuff. And it's like, how do you have an AC of 24 and you're level 3? Like,
it gets crazy. It can definitely get crazy, but nothing in the game is unbeatable. Like every strength has a weakness.
Thank you.
So there's always a way for you to go after that, and you shouldn't do that every time as a DM, right? Even if you feel like they're overpowered and they're like blowing through things, Marcus shouldn't have to fight ranged attackers every time, right?
And he's like, fine, I'm gonna learn how to shoot a bow. It's like, haha, now everybody comes at you with a club. Now you're just being a jerk, DM. I really believe that there should be encounters that should be designed to make people feel cool, but also challenge them and or let other people in the group shine.
Especially once your players characters rather, once they start getting really good at things and doing a lot of quests, people are going to know about them. They're going to know that Marcus is really good at close range, so don't get close to him.
Oh. Well, that would be the thing. Like the instance we referenced for him was, just undead coming after him, so they're kind of mindless. But there were plenty of other encounters where like one or two of them would come after him and they'd be like, I think I'm gonna go pick on the gnome if I can, or like I'm gonna throw a javelin instead. Like it was something that would be like, what, the enemy can be smart too, even if they have a somewhat low intelligence. They can see their teammates getting chopped in half just by going near this guy. There's plenty of ways around it.
Aside from going after specific abilities that they have and like using specific counters to that, you could adjust your encounters to work better for the group. And by the way, if you want to learn all about making great encounters, you should check out our video on how to make great encounters. And if this encounter was a great one and you like what you're seeing here so far, then maybe subscribe and drop us a like and comment and check out our back catalog of videos because we have a lot of them. But you could give your players more things to worry about in combat other than killing their opponents. We've talked a lot about this. It's something that we did the whole video on it, and then we've referenced it a lot in other videos. There should always be objectives other than, not always, I guess, but there should be objectives other than surviving. There should be some other goal in there if you really want to challenge them, especially if they're great at killing.
It's very easy as a player to fixate on the combat abilities, the combat feats, to put together this like gonzo build where you're like, we'll destroy the world in one shot. Like, and that's cool. Let them do that once in a while, I guess. But
they only need once.
They only need it once, yeah.
The world is destroyed.
I have won. I have won
Same
D&D.
thing we do every day.
If you're familiar with ancient relics and Hoki religions, Vale absolutely loves his sister. So, Josh, if you felt like for whatever reason, Vale is just too strong or the group is too strong, if in a combat Vale's sister's life is in danger, now victory has more conditions to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because even if we destroy the enemy, if his sister is killed, that's there's another level there. And I'm not saying you have to threaten the characters in your game, their family members, but there just should be depth. Always ask, why is this encounter happening? I mean, sometimes it's fun to just have this hack and slash thing show up in your doorstep, but even then, like, why did this dragon just appear and attack? Or why is this troll here? You know? And then all of a sudden, an encounter that's like too easy, there's a story driven reason behind it. And yes, it may have been like too easy, but it was still cool because it had depth, it had meaning. It wasn't just, let's just fight for the sake of fighting. It's just great.
Even aside from the like having your favorite NPC be threatened and that that kind of thing. If you don't want to do that, which you should do at some point, you shouldn't do it every time.
It's nothing
That's
like
how
a good
people...
hostage situation.
um, so other things you could do would be whether there's some sort of like magic weapon or something crazy happening that is time sensitive. Time sensitive is the key here because they can't wait until after they kill everything to do it. Or maybe something is just spawning new enemies and they need to like close a gate or something like that. So maybe your super powerful fighter who has the highest strength and has the most attacks and all that kind of thing, well, maybe they have to use their action now for 3 turns, let's say, to try to take this like big like wheel crank thing and push it. And while they're doing that, they're taking attacks. And if they take an attack, then they have to do some sort of strength-based constitution check. Otherwise, they get set back and they have to spend another action on it. Something like that.
Maybe they even use their action surge to turn that wheel, Josh.
Exactly. and it could be something like that. It could be destroying a machine instead of attacking the enemies, diffusing a bomb. Maybe not a bomb because it's D&D. I don't know. Maybe they have to like chug a ton of potions or something like that. Maybe those potions have weird effects. Like there's all sorts of crazy things you could do, and the limit is really your imagination. Because you're the DM or you're the GM or whatever you are, you're running the game and you have the freedom to add these things in there. And if you want your players to be challenged outside of just, here's my super strong and powerful enemy, well, there's something like that in there. It's going to be a memorable encounter because there's a ton of stuff going on that they're going to have to think about. And for me, at least, like I love a good combat, but I love strategy and I love things that make me really have to think. I love encounters where I really have to plan and strategize. So something like this, I would be stressed out about it, but I would love it.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is, okay, so maybe not going to threaten the character's family member, but look at your player's character sheets, especially if you're like the DM and everybody's on D&D Beyond or something, and you can just literally pull up their character sheet and go, oh, okay, everybody's like neutral goody two shoes. So now I'm going to present a situation where maybe doing the wrong thing is kind of the right thing to do. What do they do there? Your personalities, your ideals, your bonds, your flaws, those are other outstanding ways to present challenges that take the numbers and just make it a secondary thing so the fun is still there.
Yeah.
What do you like? Are ideals and bonds even a thing unless they're challenged? What do you do when it's hard to do that? Like, these are the kinds of questions I think DM, you could say it's fighting dirty or kind of being mean, but life isn't fair. That's just, that's what makes a good story.
You are allowed to attack more than just their hit points, and you absolutely should attack their pips, personality, ideals, bonds, flaws, right?
Oh yeah.
But if you do want like just a normal encounter, that's okay too. If you just want to challenge them in a normal combat and you don't want extra things to keep track of, there's nothing wrong with that. First step I would say is ignore the CR system. I've said it before, probably in our encounter video, or I think, if not another time since then, but the people who designed the game, the people who designed the challenge rating system, don't use it. There's literally nothing else I could say that should convince you to look elsewhere other than the people who designed it don't think it's a useful tool.
No, that's why they're updating everything.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
It is literally just a very basic starting point, not an
Yes.
ending point. This is where you like, okay, so this is kind of the general realm in which I live. Okay, my party's level 7. I'm gonna treat them like they're level 10 because, like in our group, like Melly blesses everybody. It's like we never miss. I mean, it's rare.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's where you throw an adult white dragon after them. And then it was a really cool counter.
Yeah, and you still ended it in like 4 turns or 4 rounds, and that's okay because it was challenging and it was intense and it was crazy, and you thought characters weren't gonna die and like all of those things, right? I will look at challenge rating exactly like you said as a starting point, and I think challenge rating does work for the most part at early levels, for the most part, not entirely,
Yes.
but
It gets out there as you go.
yeah, exactly. As like a general rule of thumb, I would say start off if your players are overpowered. And if your players are overpowered, you've probably played with them for a little bit. You should understand like what they do and what works and that kind of thing. Have some sort of understanding about that. And if you don't, then try to pay attention to what they're doing in combat and choices they make and that kind of thing. Because if you understand your players, it's going to make making encounters for them a lot easier. But as a rule of thumb, I'd say go 2 challenge rating above, 2 CR above, whatever they are, and then add some minions in there too. Again, little guys, make them feel strong when they kill them in 1 hit or 2 hits or whatever. And it's also adding complications and it's adding actions to the combat. Really, it's a game about actions. If you win the action economy, you probably win the combat.
These are the thoughts that we put together on how we can handle this because as the dungeon master, you really have a ton of options at your disposal. The most important of which, of course, is good, honest, genuine communication with each other. If everybody at the table is invested in everybody else's fun, you're going to find a way to come to some kind of a solution if something is out of whack.
And just one more note on good, honest communication. If you are a player and you feel like one of the other players at your table is overpowered, you think they're stealing the show always, anything along those lines, that's a valid thought to have. It's a valid feeling. And you should tell your DM about it. You could talk to the other player about it. Whatever feels appropriate, just make sure you do it respectfully. That's all it comes down to. Everybody's there to have fun together and be respectful to each other. And if I'm doing something and it's taking away from your fun, well, let's figure out how we could come to a better solution for that.
And of course, we realize that you have a lot that you could teach us about. So if you have anything that you've done as a DM or as a player in a situation that seemed to just get out of balance in terms of power, we want to hear about it in the comments section below because we'd love to have that conversation. And of course, check out the description where our link tree is. And maybe you come hang out with us in our Discord and we talk about D&D and, show pictures of pets and stuff. So thank you so much for watching. We love you and we'll see you next time.